When a man decides to step back and pull his energy away, something very powerful happens. You see, sometimes it's not in the loud arguments, the explanations, or the emotional breakdowns that a woman realizes his worth. It's in his silence. Silence has a language of its own. It's not empty, it's not weak, and it's not a lack of care. In fact, it's often the strongest message he could ever send. Because when a man stops showing up the way he used to, when he no longer checks in the way she was once accustomed to, that absence begins to speak volumes. It's in the quiet moments that she starts to wonder, where is he? Why isn't he calling? Why isn't he chasing anymore? And that's where the first seed of realization begins to grow. At first, she may dismiss it. She might tell herself he's just busy or distracted. But deep down, there's an unsettling shift. The comfort she once had, the certainty that he would always be there no matter how she treated him, starts to dissolve. And it's in those moments that she begins to understand how much space he actually occupied in her life. The daily texts, the thoughtful gestures, the consistency that she once brushed off. They were never just routine. They were his way of saying, I care, I'm here, you matter. Because it was always available, she thought it would never go away. Now with his silence, the reality starts to sink in. Human nature is wired to crave what's missing. The more available something is, the easier it is to overlook. It's only when it's taken away that we feel the weight of its importance. For a woman who has taken a man for granted, his absence begins to echo louder than his presence ever did. That's the paradox. While he was around, she may not have appreciated the energy he was giving, but the moment he steps back, his absence creates a void she can't easily ignore. And that void doesn't just feel like missing a person. It feels like missing peace, missing support, missing stability. What makes this even more powerful is that the silence isn't born out of spite. It's not revenge, and it's not a game. It's simply a man reaching a point of clarity where he realizes that his value doesn't need to be proven through constant effort. He no longer feels the need to over-explain or over-give. Instead, he understands that stepping back allows the other person to truly see what life feels like without him. And that's when she begins to reflect on all the little things she overlooked. She remembers how he always noticed when her mood shifted, how he would encourage her when she doubted herself, how he showed up when no one else did. She remembers how he gave her consistency in a world full of people who only offered half-hearted attention. And suddenly, the silence isn't just quiet. It's deafening. It's the absence of reassurance, the absence of effort, the absence of someone who once filled her life with care. And the truth is, that's when appreciation begins. Not when he was standing right there giving all of himself, but when he no longer feels the need to keep proving his love. That's the irony of human relationships. Sometimes we only see the value of someone once we can no longer reach them so easily. That's when her heart begins to feel the weight of his absence. And the man she once took for granted becomes the man she starts to miss. Because silence has a way of forcing reflection. When there are no messages, no calls, no familiar gestures, she has nothing left but her own thoughts. And those thoughts become louder each day. She starts replaying memories, rethinking the times she brushed off his kindness, regretting the moments when she didn't reciprocate. And slowly she realizes that it wasn't just his presence she loved, it was the way he made her feel valued, secure, and understood. That's the power of absence. It turns ordinary gestures into irreplaceable treasures once they're gone. And here's the most profound part. It is not his job to return just because she finally sees his worth. It is not his responsibility to make her comfortable again once she feels the sting of his silence. His stepping back is his way of reclaiming his energy, his peace, his dignity. Whether she recognizes his value or not, he has already shifted the dynamic. He has already chosen himself. When a woman is with a man who gives his all, it often feels so natural that she doesn't stop to think about what life would look like without it. His love, his loyalty, his patience, his constant presence. It all becomes a part of her daily comfort. She doesn't even question it because it feels like it will always be there. And that's where the mistake begins. Comfort turns into expectation, and expectation turns into taking him for granted. She assumes his love is endless, his efforts are guaranteed, and his patience has no limits. She may not even do it consciously. It just happens because human nature tends to normalize consistency. But what she doesn't realize in those moments is that comfort can quickly turn into regret once that man is no longer there. It's in the little things where this shift becomes most obvious. Maybe she got used to the way he always checked in to make sure she was okay, the way he noticed her smallest moods, or the way he made her feel secure without her even having to ask. At the time, she might have brushed it off, ignored it, or even felt slightly annoyed by it. But later, when those gestures stopped, She realizes they weren't just habits, they were signs of love, signs of attention, signs of someone who truly cared. And when that comfort disappears, the absence hurts far more than she ever expected. There's a saying, you don't know what you have until it's gone. That isn't just a cliche, it's reality. The loyalty that once felt suffocating suddenly feels like safety she would give anything to have back. The love that felt overwhelming now feels like the very thing she craves in the middle of the night. And the patience she dismissed as normal becomes the thing she regrets not appreciating enough. That is the transformation from comfort to regret. What makes regret so heavy is that it forces her to reflect on the moments she could have chosen differently. She thinks back to the times she dismissed his affection instead of embracing it, the times she criticized instead of showing gratitude, the times she chose pride over vulnerability. And in hindsight, those moments cut deeper because now she knows she had something rare, something valuable, and she let it slip away. That realization can feel suffocating because regret doesn't come with an undo button. It comes with the weight of knowing what you lost. And here's the truth. No one misses being taken care of until that care is gone. No one misses loyalty until they're surrounded by inconsistency. No one misses love until they feel its absence. That's when the comfort she once thought was guaranteed turns into a longing that eats away at her. She begins to wish she could go back and appreciate it more, love him better, recognize his efforts when he was still giving them. But by the time the regret sets in, the man who gave so much has already changed. He's no longer the one chasing, no longer the one overextending, no longer the one sacrificing his peace to keep her happy. This is where regret becomes even more painful, because she doesn't just miss the man, she misses the version of him who used to love her so deeply. And that version no longer exists in the same way. When a man has been overlooked and unappreciated long enough, he evolves. He learns to protect his energy. He learns to value himself more than someone who couldn't see his worth. And once that growth happens, it's nearly impossible for him to go back to who he used to be. That's why regret can be such a powerful teacher. It shows her the difference between what she thought was ordinary and what was truly extraordinary. It makes her realize that not every man will give that level of loyalty. Not every man will stay patient through her moods. Not every man will fight for her even when she pushed him away. And once she sees that, she understands that she wasn't just comfortable, she was blessed. But comfort blinded her until it was too late. The painful part is that regret lingers. It doesn't just disappear overnight. She may move on, meet new people, try to fill the gap with distractions, but somewhere inside there will always be a voice reminding her of the man who gave his all and asked for so little in return. That voice whispers every time she experiences inconsistency with someone new, every time she realizes that not everyone has the same patience, every time she sees what she lost reflected in someone else's lack. And in those moments, she begins to understand that comfort was never the problem, her lack of appreciation was. Because comfort in love should feel safe, it should feel natural, it should feel consistent. But it only stays beautiful if it's valued. And when it's not, it eventually transforms into the kind of regret that doesn't go away. That's why when a woman takes a man for granted, she doesn't just lose him. She loses the comfort that once made her feel secure. And in its place, she's left with regret. A regret that follows her long after he's gone. One of the most powerful moments of realization comes when a woman begins to compare. At first, she may not even notice she's doing it. She might move on, start talking to new people, surround herself with different energies, and believe she's stepping into something better. But deep down, comparisons begin to creep in. She remembers how effortlessly he understood her, how he anticipated her needs without her even having to ask, how his consistency made her feel safe. And suddenly, when she looks at what others are offering, the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. It's not that other men are necessarily bad. It's that they're simply not him. They don't bring the same patience. They don't notice the details he always picked up on, and they don't make her feel the way he did when she laughs. It doesn't feel as genuine. When she talks, she doesn't feel as heard. When she's vulnerable, she doesn't feel as safe. That's when the comparisons hit hardest. She begins to realize that the little things she once dismissed were actually the biggest things. His loyalty wasn't ordinary. His consistency wasn't guaranteed. His way of caring wasn't something that could be easily replaced. At first, she may try to convince herself that she's fine without him, that there are plenty of options, that moving forward will be easy. But every new interaction highlights what she lost. Every moment with someone else reminds her of what she once had. She starts to see the difference between someone who shows interest and someone who shows effort, between someone who wants her attention and someone who truly valued her heart. And those comparisons create a quiet ache inside of her. That's the reality of human nature. We don't always appreciate uniqueness until we realize it's rare. In a world where people are quick to lose interest, where attention spans are short, where consistency is hard to find, a man who showed up fully, without games, without hesitation, stands out even more once he's gone. When she sees how easily others give up, how easily they get distracted, how little effort they put into understanding her, she realizes that what she once had was never ordinary. This comparison doesn't only happen in relationships. It happens in friendships, in conversations, in the smallest exchanges. She begins to notice how others don't ask about her day with the same genuine concern, how they don't remember the small things she mentioned weeks ago, how they don't step in when she's struggling without her even asking. And in those moments, her mind goes back to him. The man who did all of that naturally, the man who never made her question if she mattered, the man she once overlooked. What makes this so powerful is that the comparison isn't forced. It happens naturally. She doesn't plan to miss him. She doesn't choose to feel the difference. It just hits her in unexpected moments. When she's having a bad day and realizes no one checks in the way he used to. When she's celebrating something small and realizes no one shares her joy with the same excitement. When she's quiet and no one notices the way he always did. Those are the moments when the void becomes undeniable. And here's the truth. It's not always the grand gestures that make someone irreplaceable. It's the small consistencies, the little things that seemed insignificant at the time, but built a foundation of security and love. Once those are gone, and once she experiences the inconsistency of others, she starts to crave what she once had. She starts to miss the way he made her feel safe without trying, the way he gave his time without making it conditional, the way he loved without holding back. The comparisons grow stronger as she sees that most people don't match the standard he unknowingly set. Because whether she realized it or not, he raised the bar. He showed her what genuine care looks like, what patience feels like, what love without hesitation truly is. And once that standard is set, it becomes almost impossible to ignore when others fall short. That's when regret deepens. Because she doesn't just miss him. She misses the version of herself that felt secure in his presence. She misses the calm he brought into her storms, the confidence he gave her just by believing in her, the peace she felt simply knowing he was there. No one else gives her that. No one else makes her feel that way. And with every comparison, the realization cuts deeper. The man she once took for granted is the man she now wishes she could have backed. And the hardest part is knowing that while she's realizing all of this, he's already moved forward. He's trying to prove his worth, no longer waiting to be seen, no longer available in the way he once was. She may see his value now, but he has already chosen to see his own. One of the things that often goes unnoticed in relationships is the quiet stability a man provides. It's not always in the grand gestures or the dramatic words. It's in the consistency, the reassurance, the emotional balance he brings into her life without even pointing it out. When a woman has a man who is steady, who stands like an anchor in her world, she may not always see it clearly. She gets so used to the calm he creates that she forgets how chaotic life feels without it. And that's the irony. Stability is invisible when it's present, but its absence is overwhelming. Think about it. When a man is always there, keeping her grounded, she starts to expect it as a given. She assumes he'll always be the one she can lean on, the one who keeps her centered when her emotions are all over the place. She assumes he'll always be the one who listens when no one else has the patience, the one who offers guidance without judgment, the one who gives her the security of knowing she's not alone. She may not realize it at the time, but he's not just present, he's a foundation. And the thing about foundations is you don't really think about them until they crack. When he steps back, when his energy shifts, when he's no longer pouring into her the way he once did, that's when the emptiness becomes clear. Suddenly, the calm she once took for granted is gone. The balance she once relied on is missing. She notices how unsettled she feels, how restless her mind becomes, how much harder it is to carry the weight of life without that emotional support. And it's not because she can't survive without him. It's because she had become used to the strength he quietly gave her. Stability is rare in a world where so many people are inconsistent. It's rare to have someone who doesn't just show up once in a while, but shows up every time. It's rare to have someone whose presence doesn't bring chaos, but brings peace. And when a woman loses that, she feels it in ways she didn't expect. She might find herself surrounded by people who say the right things, who give attention in fragments, who show up when it's convenient. But none of them provide that steady sense of security he once gave her. And that's when she begins to realize that stability is not boring. It's priceless. It's not about routine. It's about reliability. It's not about predictability. It's about peace. She remembers how she could express her fears and he wouldn't dismiss them, how she could break down and he wouldn't judge her, how she could lean on him without feeling like a burden. That kind of stability is something she may not have noticed when she had it every day, but when it's gone, she understands just how valuable it truly was. It's also important to understand that stability isn't just about emotional support. It's about the way he made her feel safe to be herself. With him, she didn't have to wear masks. She didn't have to pretend. She didn't have to hold back. That safety is something that can't be easily replaced. When she finds herself around people who don't give her that same level of comfort, she starts longing for the man who once made her feel understood without her even having to explain herself. And that longing grows stronger over time. She starts to notice how much more anxious she feels, how much more she second guesses herself, how much more she misses having that solid ground beneath her. Because when a man provides stability, he becomes more than a partner, he becomes a safe place. And losing that kind of safe place feels like losing a part of herself. This realization doesn't come all at once. At first, she might just feel a little uneasy. Then she notices the difference in her daily life. The moments that once felt calm now feel heavy. The nights that once felt peaceful now feel lonely. The comfort she once thought was guaranteed now feels like a privilege she overlooked. And day by day, the weight of that loss grows heavier until she fully understands that the stability she once dismissed was the very thing that gave her peace. The truth is, not every man can offer that kind of stability. Many can offer excitement, temporary attention, or short-lived passion. But stability, true stability, requires emotional maturity, patience, and genuine care. When a woman realizes she had that and didn't appreciate it, the regret cuts deep. Because she understands that she didn't just lose a man, she lost the sense of security he brought into her life. And the hardest part of all is knowing that once he takes that stability back, once he redirects it into himself and his own growth, it's not easily regained. She may miss him, she may crave that feeling again, but he has already learned to give that peace to himself instead of to someone who never valued it. That's when the absence of stability becomes louder than any words, louder than any memories, louder than any excuses she tries to tell herself. And in that silence, she finally sees the truth of stability she once overlooked was the very thing that made her feel complete. There comes a moment when a man finally decides that his energy, his love, and his effort cannot continue to be poured into someone who doesn't see his value. It doesn't happen overnight, but gradually he reaches a point where he no longer feels the need to chase, to explain, or to prove himself. And instead of focusing on her, he begins to focus on himself. That shift changes everything. Because the man she once thought would always be available suddenly becomes the man who invests his time in his own growth, his own goals, his own happiness. And that transformation is exactly when she begins to feel his absence the most. You see, when he was always there, when his world revolved around her, she thought that was simply who he was, that his love had no boundaries, that his patience had no limits, that he would always wait for her to finally see his worth. But once he starts pouring that energy into himself, she realizes she was never dealing with a man who lacked options or value. She was dealing with a man who chose her, who gave her more than he gave anyone else, who prioritized her above everything else. That realization doesn't come while he's still chasing. It comes when he stops. And it's not just that he stops chasing. It's the way he evolves once his energy is no longer drained. Suddenly, he's glowing differently. He's more confident, more focused, more at peace. He looks like a man who has found his purpose. And there's something undeniably attractive about that. He starts succeeding in areas she may have never noticed before. He starts prioritizing his dreams. He starts surrounding himself with people who value him. And while he grows, she watches from a distance and realizes that the man she once overlooked has become the man she now longs for. That's when regret doesn't just sting, it burns. Because she doesn't just miss the version of him who loved her endlessly. She misses the new version of him who no longer needs her. She misses the attention that once came so freely, the reassurance that once felt so constant, the love that once seemed unconditional. But now she sees him channeling all of that into himself, and it leaves her with a deep sense of loss. Because the very man she thought she could always count on has become the man she can no longer reach. And the truth is, this transformation is one of the most powerful things a man can experience. When he stops overextending himself for someone who didn't appreciate him, he starts to realize just how much potential he has been holding back. He begins to thrive in ways he couldn't when his energy was being drained. His silence becomes strength. His absence becomes growth, and his new life becomes a reflection of what happens when a man finally chooses himself. For her, though, that transformation is painful to witness, because now every glimpse of his growth is a reminder of what she lost. When she sees him laughing freely, when she sees him achieving goals, when she sees other people admiring the very qualities she once dismissed, the comparisons return. But this time they're even harsher because she knows she had him in his purest form and didn't value it. She knows that the man who is now admired by many was once devoted to her alone, and she let him slip away. And here's the hardest part: once a man learns to prioritize himself, it's nearly impossible for him to go back to being the version of himself that tolerated being taken for granted. He outgrows the need for validation from someone who couldn't see his worth. He outgrows the habit of begging to be understood. He outgrows the cycle of overgiving. And once that growth happens, she can miss him all she wants, but he's no longer waiting to be missed. He's already moved forward. This is why women so often start to miss the man they once took for granted when he transforms, because they realize too late that the loyalty, the effort, the love he gave was not something they were entitled to. It was a choice he made. And now that he's choosing himself, that choice is no longer available to her. She doesn't just miss the man she once had, she misses the man he has become. And the bitter truth is that the more he grows, the more she regrets not appreciating him when he was still hers.